Ghislaine Maxwell was recently moved to another federal detention center 4 days after she officially met with a government attorney. Now accusations and witness accounts newly from former inmates who had been incarcerated alongside Maxwell are now emerging, claiming that Ghislaine has close ties to a very influential figure. And 7 years after the passing of convicted criminal Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell continues to stay silent, and for the very first time. We may finally have an explanation why today.
File prisoner was Ghislaine Maxwell. Did you have any interactions with her?
I had interactions with her, limited interactions with her. I worked at Recreation, right? And so she would come in and work at Recreation, work out. But her experience there is very different from anyone else's, even Elizabeth and I. She is treated very differently there. And, I didn't have a lot of interaction with her. It was just on a very, she would come over and talk to us, or I would see her if she would, come by Recreation. But, and honestly, I chose that. I chose to have very limited interaction with her. She made it very publicly known, well, at least to, Elizabeth and I, that there's no remorse there. And again, I obviously don't know all the details of the case or whatever, but we know enough. It was a lot when the victims would be on TV and talking. She was just complete disregard for them, and this is when they are pouring their hearts out in front of Congress and for this files to be released and stuff. And so to see that kind of behavior when there are real victims that you're seeing and what they've gone through, and to be so dismissive of that just didn't sit with me the right way.
On the 28th of June, 2022, Ghislaine Maxwell was given a 20-year sentence in federal prison for sex trafficking offenses connected to Jeffrey Epstein. The ruling included her involvement in recruiting, grooming, and enabling the exploitation of underage individuals across nearly a decade. Victim statements, eyewitness testimonies, together with hundreds of thousands of emails spanning a 10-year period, showed that Ghislaine was working with Epstein and would travel across the globe looking for victims.
Ghislaine Maxwell approached me at the spa area. She was like this really bright Mary Poppins kind of a figure. And she said, "Oh, you're reading a book on massage therapy." And, we started talking. And she goes, "Oh, you know what? I know this guy. There's an opportunity, actually. If you want to become a real massage therapist, we can get you trained. You can come for the interview tonight. And if he likes you, then you'll be a real masseuse. And you'll get to see the world. And you'll get paid $200 per massage." And no alarm bells went off because it was this proper English lady who just looked so nice.
Epstein's victims have talked about how they weren't sure who this guy was, but because Ghislaine seemed so proper, surely it's got to be legit. Her posh upbringing, her accent, gave this veneer of respectability. Coming from a woman, I think that was incredibly manipulative, and I think it was absolutely critical in Epstein's operation.
My dad brought me over. He shakes hand with Ghislaine, who promises that she'll take good care of me and she will have someone drive me home.
These victim statements not only clearly implicate Maxwell, but they also reveal just how connected she truly was. Several victims have stated that the main reason they trusted her lies was because she had connections with politicians or billionaires around them. Women from the UK described seeing Ghislaine Maxwell spending time with members of the royal family, while victims from the US claim that Ghislaine had pictures of her with Hillary and President Bill Clinton. President Bill Clinton has acknowledged this under oath, stating that he was closer to Ghislaine Maxwell than Jeffrey Epstein due to her strong ties with the Rothschild family. She was very close friends with Evelyn Rothschild and his wife Lynn, whom I knew and stayed in regular contact with.
Ms. Maxwell's interview, she stated that President Clinton was her friend, not Epstein's friend. Is that accurate?
I'd say that it was accurate to say that I felt closer to her than him.
And for the record, why was that?
Because I had seen her more, and because she was very good friends with Evelyn Rothschild and his wife Lynn, whom I knew and was in regular touch with.
Not only that, but Representative Pat Fallon recently questioned Hillary Clinton and asked her the question the media's too scared to ask. Why was Ghislaine Maxwell at her daughter, Chelsea Clinton's, wedding after the conviction? Her answer under oath? She was just a +1. A +1. At your daughter's wedding. After all of it.
politics. So take us behind closed doors. What was Hillary's demeanor like? She actually got fluffed up pretty well, looking pretty good there. So how did it go down?
Well, I'd never actually seen Laura. I'd never seen her in person, and she was certainly agitated. She was trying to be a little charming to the Democratic staff, and that even fell flat. She's a very icy person, interestingly enough. But nonetheless, she was trying to distance herself from Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell, obviously, as she just said. She said she never met Epstein. She was just casual with Maxwell. So I asked her a question, just casual. You've met hundreds of thousands of people. Your daughter gets married in 2010. You have to distill these hundreds of thousands of people down to 250. There were 500 at the wedding. There's going to be a groom. So 250 Clinton invites. And guess who shows up as an invited guest? Ghislaine Maxwell. And she said, well, she just was a +1. I said, so that's your testimony under oath, that it's just an odd coincidence that old Maxwell was there. Things that make you go,
Do we know who wait, what was she Epstein's +1? Forgive me for not knowing that.
No, Epstein didn't go. He had been convicted of 2 counts in 08.
As a result of her crimes, Ghislaine was transferred to a federal prison in Florida where she was expected to serve the remainder of her sentence. However, while in this facility, Maxwell was visited by the Deputy Attorney General and the current Acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Just days after this meeting, Maxwell was unexpectedly moved to a minimum security federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas. The Texas facility is a women's prison camp featuring dormitory-style housing, little to no perimeter fencing, and a lower staff-to-inmate ratio compared to her previous prison. Attorney General Todd Blanche stated that Maxwell deserved a safer facility, but this could be one of the rare times that someone as dangerous as her is placed somewhere so comfortable.
We're almost out of time. I do want to ask you about Ghislaine Maxwell, who was, of course, convicted in 2021 for her role in helping Jeffrey Epstein traffic his victims. In July, you interviewed her in Florida, where she was serving a 20-year sentence in federal prison. Just a week later, Maxwell was moved to a more permissive prison camp in Texas. Why was she moved just days after you interviewed her, Mr. Blanche?
So that's a Bureau of Prison Security issue that I will not talk about.
Did you have anything to do with it? Did you have anything to do with it?
Let me finish. First of all, I am responsible for the Bureau of Prisons. So every decision that they make lands on my desk to the extent it needs to. But just let me talk about the security issue. At the time that I met Ms. Maxwell, there was a tremendous amount of scrutiny and publicity towards her. And the institution she was in, she was suffering numerous threats against her life. So the BOP is not only responsible for putting people in jail and making sure they stay in jail, but also for their safety. And so she was moved. She is in federal prison. She was in federal prison before. She's in federal prison now. She's doing 20 years because she was convicted. And the fact that she was moved, she might be moved to another institution tomorrow if security requires it. And that's true of any federal inmate across this country.
Ghislaine Maxwell's new camp comes with many privileges, including having her own puppy and unrestricted access to the internet. One of the inmates at her facility said that her experience there is very different compared to everyone else's. She is treated very differently there. She made it clear there is no remorse at all. When the victims would appear on TV and speak, she showed complete disregard for them as they were pouring their hearts out in front of Congress and calling for the files to be released.
Ghislaine Maxwell, in her own words, describing life in her new prison home. I feel like I have dropped through Alice in Wonderland's looking glass, she writes, a federal prison camp Bryan, according to emails she sent to friends and family reviewed by NBC News. I am much happier here, she writes. Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for recruiting minors to be sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein. The emails obtained by the House Judiciary Committee investigating allegations of special treatment, written by Maxwell after an abrupt and unusual transfer from a low-security facility in Florida to this all-women's camp in Texas, typically reserved for white-collar criminals. The move came amid backlash over the DOJ and FBI announcement in July that a review found no incriminating client list. Soon after, Maxwell met with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
Did you know of the existence of any such list?
There is no list.
Days later, she was transferred and writing emails gushing over her improved conditions. The food is legions better. The place is clean. The staff responsive and polite, she wrote. Saying in another, you were not allowed to steal, beat people up, and attack them with homemade weapons. The Justice Department, which oversees federal prisons, declined to comment. Maxwell's attorney saying in a statement, "It's time to get over the fact that she's in a safer facility. We should want that for everyone." The family of abuse survivor Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who later died by suicide, saying, "We strongly reject the notion that a convicted child sex trafficker should reside in a residential neighborhood, shielded by fences, instead of bars."
CNN has learned that Ghislaine Maxwell has been getting special treatment inside of a minimum security prison in Texas, where she's currently serving 20 years for child sex trafficking. Sources who are familiar with Maxwell's life inside prison tell us that she has unlimited access to toilet paper, for example. The typical inmate gets just 2 rolls per week. At one point, she was getting her meals and mail delivered to her cell. She's also been allowed to use the chaplain's office inside the chapel for guests visiting outside of visitation hours. And Maxwell's arrival at this prison has really had a chilling effect on the other inmates there. We're told that the warden at the prison had a town hall where she basically told all the inmates, do not talk about Maxwell. And one inmate who did talk to a reporter was reprimanded and sent out of Bryan to a higher security prison. And we are told that this kind of thing has happened to several other inmates. The Bureau of Prisons tells CNN that this is not special treatment, but necessary treatment, given how high profile Maxwell is and the threats that have been made to Maxwell's life.
Honestly difficult to overlook that all of this took place within just a week after Maxwell was personally visited by the Attorney General of the United States. And now several former presidents are being revealed to have been her associates.
We absolutely want to hear from Todd Blanche. Look, Todd Blanche, by the way, was Donald Trump's former personal lawyer. I want to remind folks of that. And this is the same person that moved Ghislaine Maxwell from a secure facility to this kind of, club-fed facility where she has roaming around. She's able to communicate, talk to pets, having secret meetings with God knows who. And so why Ghislaine Maxwell was actually moved by Todd Blanche and by Pam Bondi, I think is a really important question. And Todd Blanche has a lot to answer for because he also has been involved in the Epstein files and the way they've been released and the files that have still yet to be sent to the public and to the Congress. And so we want to hear from Todd Blanche.
Attorney General Todd Blanche says that Maxwell was moved to a lower security prison because she was facing threats and her life was at risk in the previous facility. Critics online, however, argue that it doesn't make sense to transfer her to a place with less security if her life was in danger. Anything, she should have been transferred to a higher security prison.
Trump's lawyer interviewed Maxwell in federal prison last July after she claimed President Trump was not involved in any illegal activities. Maxwell was suddenly transferred to this prison camp. Congressman Raskin claims the whistleblower says the warden there is helping Maxwell apply for her freedom.
Ghislaine Maxwell is actively seeking a commutation, a pardon from the president right now.
The White House says it doesn't comment on potential clemency requests, but the president has said before of Maxwell that he has not ruled out a...
Some critics also question whether someone as influential as Maxwell could realistically be threatened by ordinary inmates.
Prepared meals, bottled water, a dog to play with. Fellow inmates are claiming that Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, is getting special treatment behind bars. This comes as the feds release 3 million pages from the Epstein files.
Is Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend getting special treatment behind bars? There's growing outrage over reported perks being handed to Ghislaine Maxwell, now serving 20 years for child trafficking.
Does it sound like she's getting special treatment to you?
I know for a fact she's getting special treatment.
Les Trent spoke to Sam Mangle, a prison consultant who has 3 clients at the same facility as Maxwell, the Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas.
Whether it's access to a laptop computer, which is unheard of, to visits where they lock down the camp and no one can leave their bunks while she's having visitors.
Allegations of other perks, according to the New York Times, include meals being delivered to her cell and being served bottled water while other inmates drink tap water, playing with service dogs, showering alone, and watching TV alone in staff-only areas. They even provided her with an umbrella to shade her from the hot Texas sun while she took her daily walks.
She's been given the freedom and liberties that the other inmates do not have.
Last July, Maxwell was moved from a medium security prison in Florida to the minimum security camp in Texas. This followed her meeting with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. According to reports, fellow inmates at the facility were threatened with solitary confinement or transferred to a tougher penitentiary if they voiced complaints about Maxwell's perks.
They've been told from the day she got there, do not discuss her, do not put anything in writing, do not talk about her on the phone, do not make any trouble regarding Ms. Maxwell, or we will move you to another location.
Maxwell is scheduled to testify by video from prison for the House Oversight Committee as part of its probe of the Epstein investigation. Her lawyers say she is most likely to plead.
This is not even the strangest part of story. Reports online are now alleging that the woman currently in prison is not Maxwell at all, and she was actually replaced with a body double during transfer to the new facility there. Supporters of this theory highlight the absence of recent high-quality images of Maxwell in prison and the intense secrecy around her transfer between facilities process. Recently, Maxwell appeared in a deposition where she seemed completely different. Some supporters claim that Maxwell's supposed special privileges, such as private internet access and ability to direct guards, are not only signs of corruption but also evidence of a planned effort to keep the real Maxwell hidden there. Doppelganger serves her sentence. These critics argue that her powerful connections extended into the highest levels of the Department of Justice to facilitate a swap that would ensure she never faces the true consequences of her actions, or more crucially, never has the chance to testify against the powerful figures she was friends with.
Everyone that I've shown these two photographs to are understandably shocked and surprised by how dissimilar the two photographs look. The shape of the jawline has changed. The shape of the nose has changed. The shape of the upper and lower eyelids look completely different. I don't think that she somehow had cosmetic surgery during her time in prison. A lot of people would have to be involved to cover such a thing up. I agree, it sounds crazy. I'll leave it up to your audience to look at those photos and see.
The worst aspect of this situation is that Maxwell has continued escaping any consequences for her crimes and is now seemingly living a life of luxury. This is the same individual who enabled the abuse of hundreds of women. Emails from the Department of Justice releases indicate that without Maxwell, Epstein could have still managed to reach the elite contacts he was associated with. Maxwell was the person organizing meetings and recruiting additional victims. One of these victims was Annie Farmer, who has publicly spoken about abuse. She states she allegedly suffered from Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell when she was 16. She testified at Maxwell's trial and showed that Epstein wasn't acting alone.
She's refused to have, she doesn't have any empathy or has not expressed any empathy or remorse to her victims. So I think it's highly problematic that anyone would consider negotiating with a serious criminal like this. And I think it would just really be indicative of guilt in some way, because we know that she is not a credible source of information.
And you say, to her victims, as you know, she has repeatedly said that she had no involvement directly with actually abuse.
Yeah, I can speak, very personally, but the fact that that's not true. She was abusive towards me, and there's so many other crimes that she committed that she wasn't even prosecuted for. There were 4 of us that testified at her trial, but I have now met so many women who say it was because of Ghislaine Maxwell that I ended up being abused, sometimes for years, and that she was at times involved in that abuse herself. So she was a very central figure in this system, and her efforts to minimize her role have not been effective. We've seen in the files that have been released already several places where the emails she sent are contradictory to things she said on the record before about knowing Virginia Roberts Giuffre, for example, about the photo of her with Andrew Windsor. And so I think the more information we have, the more clear it is that she is not a credible source of information.
Another individual who has received significant public attention is Virginia Giuffre. In the early 2000s, she alleged that Ghislaine Maxwell recruited her and facilitated travel to locations including the United Kingdom and properties linked to Jeffrey Epstein. She stated that, as a minor, she was subjected to abuse and exploitation by influential individuals. Giuffre also claimed to have photographic evidence involving some of these figures, including Prince Andrew, which brought international media attention to her allegations. She later spoke publicly about her experiences and indicated that she intended to document them in written form. There have also been claims circulating online regarding a serious accident and subsequent events in her life. However, such accounts vary widely, and not all details are independently verified. Prior to these reports, a message attributed to her circulated, in which she stated that she was not suicidal and expressed concern for her safety.
Tweet reads, "I am making it publicly known that in no way, shape, or form am I suicidal. I have made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me, for the sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me to protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted.
Welcome back and Alive Now. I'm Austin Westfall. Breaking news coming in, some sad news to share. We're learning this from the New York Post, several other outlets reporting this as well. Virginia Giuffre, the most prominent victim of the late convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, took her own life on Thursday. This is just weeks after she made headlines for saying that she had days to live after she claimed to have been hit by a bus. A statement given to NBC News was quoted as such from the 41-year-old's family. It says, "It's with utterly broken hearts that we announce that Virginia passed away last night at her farm in Western Australia. She lost her life to suicide after being a lifelong victim of sexual abuse and sex trafficking." The New York Post says that Giuffre took legal action against billionaire financier Epstein in 2015, alleging that she was sexually raped at age 16 after his ex-lover and convicted madam, Ghislaine Maxwell, recruited her from her job as a locker room attendant at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. The mom of 3, according to the Post, also alleged that she was forced to have sex with disgraced Prince Andrew 3 times when she was 17, including at Epstein's Little St. James Island in New Mexico, and and in Maxwell's London home, where a notorious photo of her with King Charles' eldest brother was taken. The Post says the allegations became the biggest scandal to rock the royal family in a generation. Again, hearing of the sad news just within the past hour, Virginia Giuffre, the most prominent victim of late convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, taking her own life on Thursday. It was announced on Friday, her death. She was 41 years old, her family confirming this.
Then she comes out publicly and says, "It was intended to be a private message. My excuse, thank
Again?
you." No, just on that, I have 5 days to live. And then a month later, or 3 weeks later, she's dead by suicide. Nothing about this story makes any sense whatsoever, any more than I'm expected to believe that Epstein killed himself. She also previously had tweeted, "If ever I'm not suicidal," although I think whenever someone takes to social media to say that, unironically, there's something going on. She posted a while back. We were on the cusp of of Epstein documents being released, seeing clients on that list. Virginia Giuffre is the most credible of the last of the living witnesses, the last public of the witnesses. And instead of the release of the documents, we have the death of the most prominent living testament to the horrors of the Epstein, Ghislaine, Prince Andrew, allegedly human trafficking ring. So none of it makes any sense. I don't believe that she took her own life. People are going to say whether or not she's even dead. If she wants to disappear from the face of the earth, this is how you do it, because maybe she just wants to not deal with this anymore. But I won't believe ever that she deliberately took her life.
Whatever the truth is, one fact remains clear. Ghislaine Maxwell is still being shielded in ways that don't make sense to regular people. From prison transfer to political ties and connections, the questions continue just piling up. So, what do you think is actually going on here? Leave your thoughts in comments below. And if you want more breakdowns on stories that media doesn't fully cover, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next.